Piracy in anime is a delicate subject, and I feel it's necessary to give it a proper discussion. Welcome back to Otaku Daikun. Dai here. Admittedly, piracy is a topic that saddens me, but that doesn't make it any less important. Truth is, it's not a simple matter. You can't just say, only consume anime by buying it legally, nor can you possibly say your dollar has no impact on the industry. Anyone working in Western anime localization will tell you that piracy is killing anime, and quite frankly, I don't blame them. In the past, many people have lost their jobs, and distributors have shut down due to a severe decline in DVD sales. A lot of anime companies like Bandai, Pioneer, Geneon, and Tokyopop aren't particularly prevalent anymore, which is a shame, since I value the work that some of them have put out. It's easy to point at fan subs as the reason this happened, but that's a bit disingenuous. I wouldn't say it was any one group's fault, but the result of a major shift in how anime was being consumed. You see, before streaming, before the major prevalence of high-speed internet and access to fan subs, there were only a few ways Western anime fans could actually watch or discover their anime. The market was almost entirely dependent on home video sales, from VHS to DVD. Only a minuscule fraction of the anime available to us ever broadcast on television. While popular shows like Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Cowboy Bebop, etc. served as gateways into anime, they hardly represented the library of shows being sold on retail shelves. Because these shows were sold straight to DVD, fans could only find out about them through magazine articles, demo discs like those found in New Type USA, from the previews found in already purchased DVDs, or by shopping for DVDs on a whim and hoping to pick up something great. There was certainly a charm to those times. I found a lot of beloved anime that way, but it also led me to spending an arm and a leg on shows that in hindsight haven't really stood the test of time. Even so, there was a clear path to monetization. We understood how our purchases helped the industry. Obviously, companies like ADV and Funimation would compete to purchase the license to various shows. The more popular the show was in Japan, the more expensive its license would be. To recoup that cost, these companies would release DVDs with fewer episodes per disc, with these discs generally being priced the same. Thankfully, nowadays, companies just sell the show in full sets and charge for them accordingly. In general, though, our dollar went to the retail stores we bought anime from, and those stores would pay money to distributors like ADV to acquire more anime, which the distributors would pay forward to Japanese studios in the form of licensing costs. This fostered an industry of third-party localization, which gave Western distributors a considerable amount of power and influence over anime's marketing and presence around the world. We didn't really know any better. We thought that the only anime out there were the shows these companies released. The more naive of us had no idea about concepts of authenticity, whether certain parts were missing or censored, or whether or not any of these anime were actually new. We were just happy to purchase our DVDs and enjoy English dubs, as though they were the norm. As fan subs first started coming out, there was still a huge sense of loyalty to localization companies, because they were perceived to be offering more official, higher quality releases. Yet, when fan subs became more widely accessible, fans' attitudes changed. Obviously, the flaw with fan subs is that they allow us to watch anime without paying for it. I shouldn't have to explain why that's a problem people take advantage of. That aspect is destructive. This wasn't a matter of forcing music celebrities to settle for a slightly smaller summer home because we didn't buy their CD. It actually caused companies to suffer, and provided less money for the overworked, underpaid animators behind our favorite shows. And yet, through no fault of anyone's, fan subs provided solutions to problems most consumers hadn't even recognized at the time. For one, I wouldn't say it's unreasonable for fans to want to watch an anime before buying it. How do you know it's good before actually seeing it? Outside of anime, it'd be weird for consumers to just buy TV shows or movies entirely on a whim. That's why television, movie theaters, and rentals were so successful. DVDs weren't cheap, and most rental stores had a minimal library of anime to choose from. The fact that we kept buying anime despite this just goes to show how dedicated and in love fans were with the medium. Naturally, fan subs eliminated this issue. It empowered fans to watch a show and then decide whether to purchase and own it. This shined a light on an even bigger problem: leftover syndrome. Fan subs were way ahead of the game at releasing anime closer to its Japanese air date. As such, fans began to notice that officially licensed anime took at least a year to come out in the West. It helped us realize that this entire time, we'd effectively been getting Japan's leftovers. In the days before internet, this wasn't an issue, but now, fans could get invested in anime at roughly the same time as Japan did. As such, our hype train started to come and go far before Western distributors could capitalize on it. Suddenly, being loyal to Western dubs meant missing out on the latest and greatest shows. Then there were issues of quality. DVDs are, quite frankly, horrible at presenting decent visuals. They're interlaced, causing awful jitter on rapidly moving parts of the screen. They're also limited to anamorphic widescreen, meaning that widescreen images are compressed to fit the 4:3 aspect ratio on disc, and disc players would simply stretch the image back out to fit your TV. Effectively, this meant having a lower horizontal resolution. In comparison, fan subs could be encoded as progressive and could handle true 16:9, giving them clearer visuals. Perhaps the biggest problem illuminated by fan subs was the fact that a great many anime never wound up licensed at all. Shows like Macross Frontier were insanely popular, and fan subs allowed the whole world to experience it when official channels left them hanging. You always hear me talking about North American releases too, but even though the US and Canada didn't get every anime coming from Japan, even fewer anime were able to trickle out of the region and wind up in other parts of the world. This provided the best, most innocent reason for piracy, that if nobody was trying to sell you the show in the first place, there's no way you could have paid for it otherwise. At the very least, no companies were relying on your money to succeed or thrive. Essentially, minus the part about them being free, fansubs offered a superior experience at the minor cost of forgoing English dubs. They allowed fans a higher quality picture that we could enjoy alongside the Japanese release without having to commit to purchasing a show before buying it. The norm for fans quickly became watching the fansubs first, and then maybe buying the official release a year or two later when it finally releases. Blu-rays and DVDs became a collector's item rather than a prerequisite to watching an anime altogether. You can hardly blame fans for this. The fandom simply grew, such that demand for anime exceeded the market's ability to accommodate. In the long run, it turns out this wasn't even an issue exclusive to anime. The primary selling and purchasing of DVDs was dying as more effective options came about. Netflix effectively killed Blockbuster, and streaming took over. In anime's case, digital distribution just became prevalent before the market knew how to monetize it. The localization companies that managed to survive followed Crunchyroll's example and began selling access to their online catalogs, which saved the industry in the West. My access to Crunchyroll, for instance, is truly more convenient than torrenting fansubs which don't always play properly on my TV. While sitting on my couch, I can access tons of shows without having to research them, with the latest shows coming out on a weekly basis just a day or so after they aired in Japan. Most people, myself included, found this superior to streaming from unofficial sites that were drenched in malicious pop-up ads and viruses. Naturally, the best part about it was that, finally, we could have this experience guilt-free. Aware that supporting Crunchyroll meant supporting the Japanese creators due to the purchase of licenses. Now, you can argue all you want about how much of your money actually reaches Japan, especially in light of Crunchyroll's High Guardian Spice reveal and how they essentially turned their corporate headquarters into a luxurious attraction. But they still purchase the licenses to their anime from Japan, which plays a critical role in funding more productions. With the exception of countries that have no access to a legal streaming service, there really is no excuse not to sign up to at least one. Anime is more affordable now than ever before. At the time of this recording, a Crunchyroll subscription costs $8 a month, which is less than the cost of a single Inuyasha DVD from back in the day, not accounting for inflation. Those discs typically had only like 3 episodes on average, so for the old cost of 3 individual episodes of a single anime, you can now get an entire month's access to over 900 completed series, most of which are in HD, and some of which have options for English and Japanese audio. As someone who grew up in the 90s, this is honestly a dream come true. That said, even with all this convenience, there is still a place for fansubs. Like I said, not every country can access these services, and not every service has access to every anime. Digital footage without DRM is still essential to content creators like myself. Over time, more and more faults with the current streaming setup are emerging. providing pretty justifiable reasons to pirate from time to time. Licensing wars is a huge one. I personally have accounts for Netflix, Hulu, Crunchyroll, and Amazon Prime, and I'll still find shows or movies that aren't on any of these platforms. Perhaps for a time they were, but when I finally get the urge to search for one of them, I come up empty-handed. As far as I'm concerned, if a movie was once on Netflix, and I paid for Netflix during that time but didn't watch the movie, I feel absolutely zero remorse pirating that movie when I discover it's no longer there. It's not my fault they dropped the license in favor of something I have absolutely no interest in. Either way, Netflix is getting my money, and they at one time paid for the licensing I wanted to take advantage of. The same goes for anime. When Funimation and the Anime Network developed their own streaming services, Crunchyroll began to lose out on a lot of seasonal anime. Hulu would have a fairly decent library, but the Funimation and Sentai properties hosted on it had their quality reduced to incentivize buying directly through them. So here you are, in the age of HD streaming, watching a cruddy-ass version of an anime. Then there's Netflix's binging philosophy. When Violet Evergarden and Fate Apocrypha were airing, Netflix waited until the shows were complete before releasing them in North America, denying fans in this particular region the ability to simulcast. To a much smaller extent, this was still a case of leftover syndrome. Let's not forget about censorship. Despite modern streaming services being able to wall off content by age restriction, most platforms still insist on censoring shows as if they were being broadcast on TV. They continue to offer mosaics, shining lights, black bars, and even cut content, even when completely uncensored versions exist. Lastly, there's distributor integrity. Rather than catering to anime fans and offering up content uncut from Japan, companies are weighing in on Japanese anime and trying to have it changed. They take anime and alter its dialogue to fit a certain demographic or agenda. Beyond that, we're seeing certain industry professionals be rather unprofessional. Fans might not want to support a company that goes against their interests. And of course, we're still seeing anime either not get licensed at all, licensed too late, or outright dropped mid-season. Thankfully, fan subs, after all these years, still solve these problems. Whenever a show is censored, or hoarded behind licensing restrictions, fan subs are always there to cover for it. Fans sub everything, including all of the fun bonus materials that don't always make it to the home video release. Honestly, the only thing fan subs can't help us with are Blu-ray and DVD sales. There are a lot of shows that I want to own, but can't because of licensing. I can understand this too, since there are far fewer people out there who even want to own anime these days. It's for that reason that I'm actually not too bothered by Aniplex's nightmarish prices. Their business model is to sell fewer copies at a higher price, which is essentially choosing quality over quantity. That said, the prices we get in the West for Aniplex Blu-rays are still way cheaper than buying Blu-rays in Japan. So really, we've just been getting a crazy deal all these years. I'd love to see every anime that gets streamed have, at the very least, a limited run Blu-ray release for those who want it. That way, they don't have to invest too much on a product that might not sell, but they won't be completely denying fans who want them. That would be one way for Western companies to stay flexible with fan demands, which they've proven to be hit or miss about. Of course, if the Japanese Blu-rays would simply release region-free with English subtitles, we could cut out the middleman entirely. The same thing has started to happen with video games, and honestly, I'm all for it. At the end of the day, fan subs, while illegal and damaging to the industry in many ways, have stood their ground and forced companies to respect fan demands. They've sparked innovation and ensure that no matter where you live or what licensing hell an anime goes through, you'll still be able to watch everything that gets made. For those who live a pirate's life, I really can't and don't blame ya. The best advice I can give then is to financially support your fandom in other ways. Buy other things, such as merchandise, be it figures, clothes, wall scrolls, accessories, you name it. Just be sure it comes from a legit source that doesn't sell bootlegs. I don't think it's fair for fans to simply not invest in their fandom. Doing that is truly a big fuck you to everyone who works hard to bring this anime to you, whether it's on the dubbing side or the actual artists slaving over drawings. It's important to find the parts of the fandom that you value most and pay it forward, within reason, of course. Not everyone is wealthy, clearly. That said, even if you pirate way more than you actually buy, it's important to remain at least a net positive. After all, fan subs can still serve to innovate the industry, letting companies like Funimation know that we won't take their crap. The moment you're not on our side, we're not on yours. It's that simple. I don't boycott their products if they're done well. I love how they released Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress, especially because they let Bang Zoom Entertainment handle the dub. Same goes for Babylonia. I don't appreciate them hogging the license for simulcasting, but rest assured I'll buy all the Blu-rays when they come out. Just use fan subs as a tool, and not an entire lifestyle. Thanks for watching! If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to Otaku Daikun, and most of all, smashing that notification bell as if it were your waifu. That way you'll never miss out on all of my anime content, lore videos, live streams, and Holy Waifu Wars polls. My vids are struggling to get featured, so that bell is absolutely critical. If you want to support me directly, check out my Patreon, or consider donating via Super Chat. And as always, celebrate your fandom.